After being away for several months, I finally returned home, but instead of being greeted by the warmth and comfort of my childhood home, I was shocked to see a big "for sale" sign in front of it. My heart dropped. This wasn't just any house, it was the place I grew up in, filled with memories of my parents, birthdays, holidays, and quiet nights filled with love. And now, someone had put it on the market, without even asking me. I soon found out it was my husband, Stephen, and his mother, Betty, who had gone behind my back and arranged everything. They didn't care about the emotional value the house held for me. For them, it was just property, something they could sell to make money. That house was more than just walls and a roof. It was part of my identity, my past, and a symbol of everything my parents had worked hard for. Before I left, I had made it clear that the house should be left alone. I trusted Stephen to respect that. I thought we were on the same page, but now I saw just how wrong I was. He and his mother had gone behind my back and treated my family home like it was theirs to do whatever they wanted with. What hurt even more was that they didn't seem sorry. They looked pleased with themselves, as if they'd pulled off some kind of clever trick. This wasn't just about paperwork or legal rights, it was about trust. That home was given to me by my parents out of love, as a gift for the future Stephen and I were supposed to build together. My parents had always been kind to Stephen. They treated him like a son even though he came from a very different background. My family had money and stability. Stephen came from a humble upbringing, raised by a single mother, but we never looked down on him. We believed in love and partnership, and that's why we supported our marriage. Now, that trust felt broken. We had been married for over 7 years. We'd known each other since we were young, and I believed we were equals, despite our differences in wealth or family history. But this betrayal made me question everything. Instead of being partners, Stephen and Betty had taken matters into their own hands, and I was left cleaning up the mess. To make things worse, the situation reminded me of the months before I left. After we agreed not to have kids, the house felt a bit too big for just the two of us. I thanked my parents for their generosity and started talking to a real estate agent about maybe downsizing. I even told Stephen about it and asked for help with the paperwork. One morning, I asked him to fill out a form that was urgently due. "Stephen, please fill this out today or we'll miss the deadline," I told him. He didn't even look up. "Just write it for me," he said. "You're overthinking it." That moment stayed with me. It wasn't just about the form, it was about how little he seemed to care. He was growing more passive and lazy, leaving everything up to me. I handled the paperwork, made the decisions, and did it all while trying to avoid fights. But inside, I felt more like his assistant than his wife. Still, we moved forward. We found a smaller house, got everything lined up. But just as things were settling, I got a phone call that changed everything. My parents had been in a terrible car accident. I rushed to the hospital and found out they'd need months of recovery. The first 3 would be especially hard. I immediately changed my work schedule and told Stephen I'd be staying with my parents to care for them. His reaction? Barely a shrug. "Okay, that's your thing," he said, like it wasn't a big deal. I should have expected it. Stephen couldn't even handle basic chores, like laundry or taking out the trash. The idea of leaving him alone worried me, so I went to Betty and explained the situation, asking if she could check in on him. She smiled sweetly but her words were sharp. "Oh, Margaret, poor you. I'm sure your wealthy parents could just hire a nurse," she said, "but if you're so worried about them, go ahead, I'll take care of Stephen." Her tone dripped with sarcasm. Still, I had no other choice. I packed up the basics and left to care for my parents. Those 6 months were exhausting, but meaningful. I was able to be there for my mom and dad, help them heal, and grow closer to them than I had in years. Stephen barely called. The distance between us grew. When my parents finally stabilized, I drove back home, expecting to pick up the pieces of my life, but what I found shattered me. A "for sale" sign on our lawn. In disbelief, I called Stephen. He answered, sounding cheerful. "I sold the house. I've moved back in with my mom. Took care of everything while you were gone," he said, like he'd done me a favor. None of this made sense. I drove straight to Betty's house, and there, outside her door, were all my things, my clothes, books, kitchenware, piled like trash. As I stood frozen, a moving truck pulled up. A contractor rang the bell and Betty handed over some papers. Then they started loading my belongings. Stephen came out, dressed in designer clothes, standing next to a sleek car. He and Betty were counting a thick wad of cash, smiling like they'd just won the lottery. I couldn't stay silent. What's going on? I demanded. Betty turned to me with a smirk. I cleaned out your junk. You've always been spoiled. Maybe now you'll learn what it's like to live like the rest of us. She wasn't finished. You put your parents before your husband. You're a terrible wife. I told Stephen to divorce you, and I stand by that. Then Stephen showed me the paperwork. The house had been transferred to my name just before I left, and they'd used that technicality to justify selling it. You said I could do whatever I wanted, he said. Betty grinned like she'd won. And that's when it all sank in. The house was gone, my trust in Stephen was shattered, and I was standing outside a home that used to be mine, betrayed by the people I thought were family. I took a deep breath and gathered my thoughts, trying to stay calm even though my heart was racing. Then I turned to face Betty. My house should already be under contract with another real estate agency, I said, keeping my voice steady, and if that's the case, any sale you made without my permission is invalid. That means you've broken the contract. The real estate agency is going to demand compensation. Betty just shrugged like she didn't care. Well, Stephen told me you were the one who went behind his back and made a deal with another agency. I didn't see a problem. I just did what you always do, handle things on my own. Her careless attitude shocked me. She wasn't even trying to hide that she'd messed up. If there's a fine to pay, she added, that's on you. It's your house, isn't it? I turned to Stephen, hoping he'd step in and clear things up, or at least admit this had gone too far. But he just stood there, grinning like his mother. There was something smug in his smile that made my stomach turn. Finally, he said, almost proudly, this day has come. This is my revenge. My heart sank. Revenge? You always looked down on me for being poor. You and your rich parents thought it was funny, didn't you? Always acting like you were better than me. Well, I'm done with that. Now I'm going to show you what money can do. I won't be the only one left with nothing while you live in comfort. Then he pulled out some papers and handed them to me. Divorce papers, all filled out, except for my signature. I could have just let my mom submit these, he said, but where's the fun in that? He looked proud of what he'd done, like this was some big moment of triumph. Betty stood beside him, clearly enjoying every second of it. They both looked so satisfied, like they'd finally won some long game they'd been playing in secret. But as they smiled, I felt my own emotions shift. The panic and anger started to fade, replaced by a strange sense of calm. A thought was forming in my head, and I realized they had made a huge mistake. You two really think you've won, I said quietly, but I'm afraid your little victory celebration is a bit early. I opened my bag and pulled out a folded document. Slowly, I held it out in front of them. This is the official property registry for the house, I explained. Remember that phone call I had with Stephen last week? The ownership transfer finally went through. The house is now in your name, Stephen. Their faces froze. The process was delayed because of my parents' accident, but it was finalized recently. So when you sold the house, without checking, you were actually selling your own property, and you made that decision without knowing you were the legal owner. Betty looked confused. Wait, what are you saying? I tried to tell you, I said. I even asked if you wanted me to send the document, but you told me to just handle it like always, so I did. Stephen's jaw dropped as he stared at the document. Betty looked just as lost, her confidence fading fast. My parents gave us this house as a gift, because they loved both of us. They respected you, Betty. They saw Stephen as their son. That's why they wanted us to have the house, to build a life together. They believed in us. I paused and let my words sink in. But what you've done, this is a betrayal, not just to me, but to them too. They were speechless. I continued. And now, because two different agencies were involved, both are going to expect compensation. You broke a contract I had with my agency, and you signed a deal with another one based on lies. It's all going to come back on you. I looked between the two of them, my disappointment impossible to hide. I can't believe you acted so carelessly. This isn't about class or money. This is about honesty, respect, something you clearly don't understand. Stephen opened his mouth to speak, but I wasn't finished. You keep saying I'm rich, like that makes me the villain, but this whole mess wasn't caused by money, it was caused by selfishness and pride. There's nothing rich about what you've done. In fact, it's the exact opposite. It's the poverty of your character that got us here. That hit hard. I pulled out my phone to call the real estate agency, ready to report everything, but before I could hit call, Stephen reached out. Wait, please, This isn't what I wanted, he said, suddenly looking desperate. I was just mad because you left. We can still fix this. Let's try again, as a couple. Then came his ridiculous idea. I could buy the house back. You can talk to the original real estate company, cancel everything, pretend none of this happened. You've got money, you can handle it, right? I just stared at him. Before I could respond, Betty stepped in, her voice sharp. Stephen, what are you saying? After everything I did for you, now you're turning against me and taking her side? She glared at him like she didn't even recognize him. You're really putting your wife ahead of your own mother? Unbelievable. I did all this for you. I couldn't help but snap back. Oh really, Betty? That's funny, because earlier, you told me that putting your parents first made me a terrible wife, so you should be thrilled Stephen isn't putting his mother first. Betty's mouth opened, but she couldn't find any words. The hypocrisy was too obvious. Stephen tried to reach out again. You're the most important person to me, he said. I swear, I'll change. Please don't give up on me. I shook my head, backing away from him. No one said anything about forgiveness. You don't get to betray someone and then act like nothing happened. He tried to take my hand, but I pulled away. I'm tired, Stephen, tired of your laziness, your excuses. You're blaming everyone but yourself. You always expect someone else to clean up your mess. I'm done. I looked him straight in the eyes. I'm not your assistant. I'm not your maid. You're an adult. Start acting like one. Then I signed the divorce papers, right there in front of them, and handed them back without a word. It wasn't over yet. The divorce process itself took time, and things got messy. In a final act of desperation, Stephen and Betty even tried to sue my family. They claimed my parents had tricked them, that they'd been misled, but the truth always comes out. They lost the case, and in the end, they were ordered to pay heavy fines for breaking contracts and misleading both real estate companies. They blamed each other, and their once solid alliance quickly fell apart. Meanwhile, I stayed with my parents while they continued to recover. My boss allowed me to work remotely, so I could be there for them every step of the way. Each day at home reminded me what real love looks like. Your bath's ready, my dad would say with a smile. Thanks, I'd reply. You should go first, though. You must be tired from rehab. No, you go first, he'd insist gently. I'll clean up after. It was in these quiet moments that I saw what had always been missing in my marriage with Stephen: mutual care, real kindness, the small, thoughtful acts that build a life together. At first, the divorce left me hurt and confused, but living with my parents helped me see things more clearly. I watched how they supported each other through pain, how they talked, how they listened. And I realized, that's the kind of relationship I want. One built on respect, patience, and honesty, not manipulation or control. If I ever choose to love again, I'll do so more carefully, wiser from the pain, and stronger because of it. For now, I'm focused on healing, on helping my parents, on building a life with meaning, grounded in gratitude and truth. This isn't just a return home. It's a new beginning.